can I mention you, Susan? Susan was married. Was married. Susan has a daughter. You only have to speak to Susan for a minute to find out that her daughter denied her at one point or another. And the tears that streamed down her face when she was able to celebrate her daughter's birthday. Am I getting it right? Please tell me I am. Thank you. Your birthday. And to allow life to come full circle. Now, her daughter has to work through these issues. It's her issues. But Susan didn't have to ask her to accept them. Her daughter chose to accept them. And why? Because it's still a part of her life. It's still a part of her life. And denying that existence is denying the very love that God has given us to exemplify the very best that we are and to know that we can make a difference. And because we are speaking it, because we are living it. That's right. You know, denying that calling, denying that sense of expression is, according to Remembering Our Dead Wed Project, was the primary cause in 2008 of 18 deaths domestically and 11 deaths internationally. Most of them hate crimes. As I was reading, one death was the cause of officers, medical team who refused to treat a transgender person. And that person died. Another person who just was beaten to death for being who she was. How many times can we see that a person doesn't even have to die physically before they're already dead, spiritually or emotionally? To be living void of life when all you want to do is be loved and accepted. But answering the call to radical inclusion allows one to understand that transsexuality is not necessarily equated to homosexuality. Transsexuality is about identity, and homosexuality is about sexuality. It's about identifying just as God has asked you to, and to allow who you are to come through. And to speak up and express yourself just as God made you, regardless of what the outer shell says. And that's exactly what this is. This is an outer shell. At the end of our life, we all look the same. At the end of our human life, we all look the same. And that spiritual entity living a human experience, we are called to make the most of that spirituality so that we can be that expression to give someone else hope, to give someone else understanding, to give someone else some form of clarity. Oh, but you try explaining that to someone that lives in the Midwest. I don't want to offend anyone. Am I lying or what? Thank you. Heck, if it happens in California, it could very well happen in the Midwest and beyond. Now, I could even go further, Latin America, the Orient, where people just don't want to see the truth. And why? Because the truth is often too painful to embrace. The truth is often better denied rather than accepted. Answering the call to radical inclusion allows our transsexual sisters and brothers to be because of their inner makeup and to know that they can see themselves just as God made them. Where one's gender perspective has nothing to do with being male or female, you know, that's a societal thing. Society has distinguished between man and woman. Because if you ask me, what is God? Man, woman. Neither. If God is neither, and if we are made in God's reflection, in God's own image, then our own gender is one that is fluid. It's one that can be an expression of that spirituality and allow that fluidity to transcend to a higher spiritual understanding that God, neither man nor woman, can allow us to embrace one and the other and both. You get me talking long enough, you probably won't know whether I am one or the other. I see Reverend Alex, but my mind says something else. I hear Reverend Alex, but my ears are hearing something else. Transcending that fluidity. Am I saying that right? It's that accent. It gets in the way sometimes. So that our trans sisters and brothers can have the confidence to live out faith. To know that radical inclusion, when it invites you to be an expression of your faith, allows you to be as you are, without the worrying that you can walk in here and get stared at, without worrying to walk in here and get laughed at, without walking in here and get questioned. What are you? What are you pretending? Absolutely nothing. There's nothing to pretend when God has created me just the way I am. And to be that expression that allows the very inner makeup to flow through. It's overcoming the fear of radical exclusion. You heard me right. I didn't make a mistake there. Radical exclusion. A lot of churches out there preach inclusion, but as soon as you sit in the pew and as soon as they got you fished in, here they come with the Kleenex. Wipe that makeup off. Maybe this dress will fit you. Perhaps these pants are your size. And they want you to fit the mold that they have fallen into, which keeps you trapped in that box. And then allows you to simply be enslaved within the identity of someone else, rather to live out the identity that God has called you to express. And when we can be an expression of that identity, regardless of our gender, we can identify ourselves just as we are, so that we can live out, so that we can speak out, and we can simply be just as our faith has called us to be. So that we can proudly say, I am a child of the one true God. That same God that allows everyone to understand that I understand myself as God has made me. And allow that trans spirit to exude, to display, to portray the very expression of what it is to simply be in love with yourself. That's a difficult challenge, especially when the love of someone else is being denied. Or when you are denied the love of someone else because of your own self-love. The grasping of your own identity. And when you feel that you're losing it, imagine what can happen when someone has already laid the footsteps and asks you, follow mine. Let me help you. Understanding that in making that spiritual connection, we come to understand that God's love has the first and last word in all things. In all things. So that the first in our creation and the last thing in our creation is the very expression of our love, inner and outer. So that radical inclusion embraces the ambiguity and complexity of all our differences. I believe that's what sets MCCLA aside. Embracing the very differences that allows us to celebrate who we are, regardless of what we are. You try telling that to the church across the street.